So, okay, so how this works is that my advent into breathing came about, I would say, 3 years after my major spiritual experience. That I actually had already come to Costa Rica at that point, and I sat with, I went to this full moon, what was it, a full moon something. You know, they always do these full moon things at the different yoga institutes and stuff like that. So I went to this yoga institute, and it was during one of those full moon festival things. And this lady, she did this whole body breathing. And I asked her about, taking this course. And she said, yeah, we have a course coming up next week. And, but I'm doing a sample course tonight. So I stayed for the course, and she showed me just with a few techniques, really something that was amazing for me, because I actually felt the Kundalini kind of coming up my back while she was tapping on my spine. And I have since put a video online about this. It's actually called Whole Body Breathing, and it's on my YouTube, but we'll go through it again today for those that have either had trouble finding that video or would just like to see it demoed out again. But basically, not only did I feel the Kundalini awakening, but that was the first night. And then the second night that I actually went for the actual course, I got the rest of the procedures. And after that, man, things changed for me, because I realized that I could basically get high off of air, and that I could really take myself into these altered states of consciousness through my own breathing. And I was showed 3 ways of doing that. And so that's what I'm going to show you right now. Okay, so the first thing is again, you want to make your feet straight. Like this is a technique. And so you really need to get this technique down, because if you do it wrong, then you're not going to get the optimal results that you're looking for. So the first thing is to actually keep the feet straight. And what you're looking to line your feet up with is you're looking to line your feet up with your pelvis. You see what I mean? And that's the distance that you want, and that's the line that you want. And then what that does is when you straighten your feet, you'll notice that your coccyx, it opens. And this is the area that's down there right below the tailbone. And when that opens, that means that the channel is actually open. So having your legs like this, cocked out, or also inside for maybe those who have that, it will cause the coccyx to be in a strange position, so you won't get the optimal effect. So the first thing is to understand the stance, okay? And the next thing is actually to relax. And, we hold a lot in our jaws and in our shoulders. So you really want to kind of like that, and then just kind of drop your jaw. There's a technique. They tell you, loosen your eyes, loosen your jaw, loosen your shoulders, and I'll source the video, but there's basically a standard relaxation technique. And you'll notice that you'll be holding yourself in certain parts of your body, like on your shoulders, or mainly your shoulders, on your jaw. And then you want to relax those areas to make sure that the energy is flowing. And now that you've accomplished that, that's actually the onset of it, and really the most complex part of it. This is a very easy breathing technique, but very effective. Actually, I won't say that's the easiest part. The other part that is a little bit more difficult for people, especially if you're just beginning the breathing exercises, is actually being able to get the breathe properly, because most people that before they learn breathing exercises, they actually breathe reverse, okay? And I'll explain that. When you take a deep breath, you want your hand to come out. And then when you exhale, you want your hand to go in. Now, when they breathe out, I mean, it's literally backwards, or the hands don't move at all. They breathe in. Notice how the hands aren't moving. And that means that the area that's down here that you need to be sending the oxygen, which is in the diaphragm, it's not just in the lungs. And also you could send air into all parts of the body. You could send air into the stomach. They're not opening. They're not being filled. So you want to fill, and that's why they call this whole body breathing. You want to fill the entire body with air. So what you're looking for is the first standard way of practicing this is just getting your hands to move out when you take a breath in. So and you'll be able to see, you could probably see my hands, but you know what I'm talking about. The next thing is that when you're breathing, you want to also make sure that if you're just starting this off, that you use the breathing through your mouth. And, eventually you have to end up cycling through your through your nose for the Kundalini to go the rest of the way. But master breathers, if you want to use that term, always start the breathing when they first start the engine, if you may, through the mouth. Because this brings the Kundalini in a lot easier through the lower area, from the lower areas of the body all the way up to the heart, right? So you start off breathing through the actual mouth first. And then once you feel the Kundalini, or it's really time before you start to feel it. You can really start feeling this right away, but if you start feeling that, kind of lightheaded feeling, especially when you're breathing through your mouth, then you shift through breathing through your nose. Okay, so at first, though, we're talking about breathing through the mouth, watching the hand, and then most importantly, doing it without making a sound. Little sound is possible because the actual sound that you're making when you're going is actually restriction. So when you go, especially through the nose, instead of, but less restriction, and that's tapping into the primordial force. It's one of the keys into tapping into the primordial force is not making the sound when you're taking the breaths. Okay, so now we have standing up, down pat, and this is actually in a tense of energetics. You can go into the altered state faster standing up. But the only issue with that is if you go over the top and you happen to lose consciousness, then you're going to fall standing up, which could be very, very dangerous. Now remember, falling, like when you're conscious and you fall, it's nothing like unconscious and falling. When you're unconscious and you fall, it's dead weight. So you have a tendency to hit things, hit your neck really hard, etc. So you want to make sure that if you're taking these breaths and standing up, that you never get beyond the threshold. And you'll know what I'm talking about here in a minute about what I mean about beyond the threshold. But the reason why you should know this one is because if you're washing dishes, if you're standing in the line at the bank, all these different places where you're standing up and waiting are always an opportunity for you to breathe. And what you'll notice is it'll be quite interesting, especially if you just incorporate it into the different areas that you go in your daily schedule. You'll notice that every place that you go in where you would have normally been kind of annoyed to be having to wait there, you see as a perfect opportunity for you. So that's clear. You see as a perfect opportunity for you to actually do some breathing. So this is amazing. Let me see if I can just shut this light off because it may be oversaturating me over here. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's good enough. Yeah. Okay. So just remember that. So anywhere you go, now you have this opportunity to breathe. So rather than being annoyed and complaining like, man, what is taking her so long to use the ATM? I mean, you just put your card in, you punch the numbers, you put your amount, and you pull it out. So you go, if you're over there going nuts about something that you have to stand and wait, bam, you're not waiting on anybody. You can now utilize that as a time to cultivate energy, right? So this is standing up. You see the legs. When I'm standing up, this needs to be straight. It's lined up with here. And then you can go ahead and go with main camera, or main camera is fine. And so you could see I'm lined up, and then what I'm doing is I'm looking to drive air in here with these breaths that are first coming from my mouth, and I can be assured that I'm breathing the proper way if when I take the breath, my hand and a big part of this is just doing that at first. Like, don't complicate it for yourself. The beginner process is just taking that breath. And just try that 30 times. So again, you'll be surprised that after about breath 20 or whatever you're at, And this is how you'll learn your potential for conductivity, because for me, it's 3 breaths. Within 3 breaths, I can go into the altered state. 3 deep breaths. But when I began, I counted it more in minutes, not in breaths. Like it would take me 15, 20 minutes before I start feeling the altered state. So remember that this is a 3-part. You just got standing up. Standing up is useful for, engaging in all the things that you need to engage in while standing up, waiting, whatever. The next one is sitting down. And I'm going to sit this way so you can see what I'm doing. And you can see this. You see this? See the chair that you want, because some chairs are too low, some chairs are too high, but most chairs are like this. You want that perfect right angle, because that's the next stage down in a certain tense for your breathing to work properly. So remember, standing being the most powerful, sitting being second in line. So when you're sitting here, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to straighten the back a bit. And then the main thing to focus on is we talked about the feet. So you see the feet down there, the feet are pointed straight. And then getting this air into the lungs. And then now the next pointer to this, to even out the energies, and even you can do this when you're standing up, but again, it's a lot more dangerous when you're standing up, is when you take this breath in. Now, first you're going to visualize air going into this part of the back. This is the diaphragm, okay? This area here actually can hold air. There's 3 compartments down there. And these compartments seem to be key to that transfer point, or actually getting into that other stage or altered stage of consciousness, okay? So driving air into the diaphragm is done by, when you're taking that breath, first practicing your breath, just make sure your hand is going in and out. Stage 1. Stage 2, quiet it down. Stage 3, get it into the diaphragm. And now, to really govern the energetics, holding. And I'm even about to fly off over here now. That's what's giving you this. And let me just explain it, because I have to give you somewhat of an explanation of what you're doing here. What you're doing is that this was known as a technique to be able to get you out of the body. Okay, that's where the origins of this technique actually comes from. And during this process of leaving the body, you actually lose consciousness from the physical body stance. So what these training exercises are really for is for you to get familiar with what it feels like before you lose consciousness, but not losing consciousness. Now, I've lost consciousness quite a few times, and that has its own interesting things that happen, but that's not really what you're looking to do. What you're looking to do, and that's why there's a lot of breathing involved in this first, is that you're just looking to build the energy, and as you're breathing with these kind of exercises, you'll be oxygenating your blood. And if you spend 15 minutes on this, at least 15 minutes a night, right? And I'm gonna show you the lay down position here in a moment. You reverse your breathing. It actually recodes the whole process of breathing, and it makes sure in your consciousness that you're taking these full, complete breaths, actually putting air into the diaphragm. And then what you'll notice is that, especially when you're standing in line and you're participating in this breathing for quite a bit, you'll notice this slight airy, kind of lightheaded kind of feeling. And that's the onset of the energy, because you'll also notice that when you stay in that range, the heart will pump more. It'll pump stronger. And then again, you'll feel this kind of altered state of consciousness. And this is what you're really looking for. So then at a certain point, you take what's called the big draw. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. But that's basically when you take one large breath and then you hold it. And then when you hold it, your body is oxygenated enough by the blood. So it won't feel like you really need to take a breath, but the mind, in understanding how often it needs to breathe, will start to kind of think that it needs to allow you to lose consciousness, like pass out. But you'll still be there, but you'll actually experience, per se, the process that the body goes through to pass out. And then Kundalini will start kicking in, because that oxygen and necessity for oxygen actually kicks the Kundalini into that process of going further up the spine. The next stage is laying down. And let's go ahead and look at the front camera for that. And it seems that the front camera, there we go. Okay, so I'm on the bed now, right? And then what I really want to do, especially if you have this going on, like remember most of the time when you go to sleep, it's like, and you're like this. But if you're doing that 15 minutes before bed, where when you go to sleep, and this is one of the biggest benefits of this, is because when you go to sleep, if you go to sleep doing this, the body seems to kick into it, or the conscious mind or a subconscious, whatever, it kicks into it and continues it. And this is what I experienced. Like the first night I went home and I did my 15 minutes, when I went to sleep, my body kept doing it. And I got up somewhere in the middle of the night and I was on this wow vibration. I could see things moving through the room and everything. And it was because I had kept breathing in the proper direction, what they call reversing the breathing. And a little brief history on the breathing. When Westerners made it to the Polynesian Islands, which is near Hawaii, they were called a name that meant shallow breath. And it was because the Polynesians were amazed that the Westerners didn't actually have the knowledge of that, how to use their breath, and that the breath was power. So, this is a thing that's hidden a lot in the culture, but it is a way, as you know, if you've done any study on breathing, to preserve yourself. So when you're in the bed, the best thing to do is to take something, a belt or anything, and just wrap it around the legs. Like some people have the straps that are used for yoga. Those will work fine. A sheet will work fine. Like what I did was I would take the sheet. I'm not gonna have a sheet now, but I would take the sheet and I would cuff the sheet under my legs, and in that way they couldn't fall to the side. Okay, so meaning when you have the sheet, if you go like this, take the sheet, and you've done this before, and you cuff it under your legs, then the sheet will keep your feet from going like that. And of course, the reason why you want to do that is because you want the coccyx to be open, but also you don't want to be so uncomfortable because you're holding the feet straight. See, if I try to go do this and I'm holding the feet straight, it's going to be hard for me to enter into the meditation, into the zone that I want to enter, because I'm actually making a conscious decision to hold my feet up. And this is very similar to the tension that's in the jaw, the tension that's in the eye, and the tension that's in the shoulder, just as synonymous with that. So what you want to get is something that's going to hold the feet and then allow you to just drop them, but they're not going to be like this, obviously. They're going to be like this. And then you can put the hands on the stomach and now remember, this is really a beginner's pose. If you're down on the bed, this is where I started, but this is the least energetic potential, but it still has a profound effect. So that's what we're talking about. So we're talking about, this is the bedtime one, and then obviously you're going to have your eye covers. If you got too much light in the room, you're going to have that tied around your feet, and then you're going to be there, and then you're going to take those breaths, 15 minutes, not 15 breaths, 15 minutes before you go to bed. And then this is the thing why and this was part of the instructions that I was given. 15 minutes is not a lot of time, so it's no reason to say, oh man, I can't do my breathing techniques tonight. And then again, it's in the bed, so you got to get in the bed at some point anyway. But you also have these other methods, the chair, the standing up, and the pad, to practice the breathing exercise. And like I said, one of the keys of it is it's whole body breathing. So don't think that you're just standing there just taking breaths and you're just wondering, well, how is this so much different than all the other breathing? It's it's a big time difference when you're pushing air into the lower region of the body and down into the diaphragm. So don't confuse it. It's like you're listening to this today, you got a lot of breathing experience, blah, 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 but you haven't seen this, and you're wondering what is the slight variation that could be causing such a great experience out of it. It's because when you put air into your diaphragm and air into the lower areas of the body, then it actually allows you to get onto an entirely different level. Okay, so here's the next breathing exercise. So let's go with this one next. Now, this one was, so after you learn the power of the breathing, and let's go ahead and get main camera going on here. After you learn the power of the breathing, one second, we're going to get main camera going on here. Okay. Once you learn the power of the breathing, then you're going to be off. Like after that, nobody's going to be able to tell you nothing. So the next thing is you're going to need to figure out how to keep progressing in your breathing without hurting yourself. Because what happens is that if you're not laying down, and this is even dangerous. Like I've fallen off of this before because I can get pretty high up there just in sitting down, but I've lost it sometime, and then boom, you wake up on the floor, and then it's not fun. So what I found was another technique that I call the master's pose. And unfortunately, I was unable to get anything to allow me to do that, because the master's pose, and this is the best chair that I can use, so I'll try with this chair. But the master's pose is really, actually, yeah, I can try with these two chairs together, that'll work. The master's pose is actually, is for the bed, okay? And this is when, most beds are about, just a little bit higher than this. So the first thing you want to save your knees is get one of these pillows, and then, the bed pillow is fine, the throw pillow for the couch, whatever. So, and then you're here now. Now, this is called the master's pose because now if you discover how to ride that line and get your frequency up in the breathing, you also realize that the next thing is that sometimes to ride that line is like riding a wave, and you can fall off. Like you can actually lose consciousness, and you can even hurt yourself. So, and when you're laying down, you really only can go so far. And then when you're sitting down on this, a fall from something like this is equally as dangerous. And then of course, standing up is a disaster. So we come up with the master's pose, and then we'll take it from the top. As we're going through this exercise, which is fun. I always feel energized, and I'm just, I don't know, I've done some stuff to my body, so I really can get the conductivity that's tied into breathing rather easy. Okay, so let's go ahead and just take it from the top again. There's no rush here. So as I was mentioning, once you start getting into the breathing and, you start riding those waves, and then you start going out a little bit further, your biggest concern starts to be that you don't want to hurt yourself by falling off of something like a chair, or like I said, even standing up. So the master's pose also happens to be, if you rate standing up, let's say for instance, it's in the power of standing up and doing the breathing, it's right next to that, maybe a little bit higher than that. So, and it's because that there's actually water in the knees and in this position, and that's why prayer and all this stuff takes place in these positions. It's easy for you to actually gain contact with your body, but because you're still erect, like I'm erect now, it encases the full part of your spine, so it's even more powerful than sitting down. But here's the benefit of this pose, and let me see if I can do it here without tearing up my mic or something. So as you're doing the breathing now, your back legs, which there's no camera on, but they're together. Mine are together. My knees are apart, hip width. So my knees are hip width apart. And then I'm on the pillow, as you can see down there, so I don't tear up my knees. And then now I'm going to do my breathing, right? And then my breathing is the same one. I'm taking the breath into the nose, and I'm blowing up the stomach. Now, before you put a little pizzazz on it, some hold 5, or breathe 5, hold 5, breathe out 5, hold out 5, breathe in 5. Some do bandhas. That's breathe in one nose, hold, breathe out one nose. So there's lots of techniques with breathing. So I'm really just giving you the core of the principle. Your technique, that's all about what style you want to use. But this is good enough, especially, this is not even beginner stuff. generally, you could do a lot without even going through the bandhas and all of that. You can just use these breathing exercises and already start getting familiar with how your system really works. So the next one is and how this works is that if you start to breathe and then you start to kind of lose it, the worst that can happen is you're going to go like this. And that's why we call it the master's pose. And it's because the master knows not to hurt himself or herself. And so this is what you're using. Now remember, in this, see, some would term Tantra as having the sexual relationships, and then you need, all these, you need. You're only putting walls in front of yourself. The Tantra is the breathing. This is how you get into this relationship with the depths of yourself, because what you'll start noticing is as you float into those high points and not lose consciousness but remain right there, and then you can feel the energy go into your body. That's called building energy. Now you're actually building the pyramid per se. So what this does is that it allows you to begin to restock the reservoir of energy that you're going to need to keep expanding. Right? So this is the key to all of this, is to remember that you're not necessarily, because at some point you're going to be reaching certain levels and you're going to wonder what to do next. Don't wonder. Just keep building the energy and breaking through. And then that's going to show you all the power in the manifestation. You're going to actually see that you're a lot quicker on things. Certain things start dropping into your lap. You're going to be manifesting a lot faster. And it's all tied into the breathing and the energy and building up the energy. And you can tell when you're building up the energy because of the lightheadedness, and basically it's a slight altered perspective that you begin to take as you're going through the breathing. Now, the last breathing technique that I'm going to show today is one that we've been waiting on for quite some time, and meaning that I've talked about this in the past, and I haven't got around to actually putting it together. And then once I decided one day to do it, then I said, man, if I give out this technique, because there needs to be some kind of responsibility with this technique, because it is very effective for altering the consciousness and getting you into another frequency. I felt I needed to be more responsible with this information. And so I felt also that I've done a really good job in this course in being very responsible with the information that I'm giving out, and also doing that in a very methodical manner. So why not teach everyone that's participating in the course what we call the bow and the arrow, which to me is the most effective breathing exercise. And I would highly suggest that an individual, and that's why I had the disclaimer in the beginning, but I would highly suggest that you work with whole body breathing first before you go into the bow and the arrow, because the bow and the arrow is designed to actually take you right out of the body in your breathing exercise. It's probably like ×3 or ×4 more stronger than whole body breathing. But remember, this is not about I want to do it right now and this is what I need to have and I need to, just that whole approach. It's got to be lost very fast when dealing with this kind of thing. You need to have patience. You need to have discipline, especially when working with these energetic fields, because you don't want to do any damage to yourself. Okay? And this is mentally, spiritually, or physically. So this is how this works. Now, we call the bow and the arrow for a reason. You could use a pillow. We always suggest somewhat of a pillow in order to save the knees, as they say. So we'll put this pillow here. Okay? And how this works is you're going to begin taking breaths. And in those breaths, you're going to simulate a bow and an arrow on the type of breathing. And so I'll explain that. So if I breathe in, okay, hold on real quick. Okay, so what I'm looking to do here, I just got to get myself together in this, and is I'm looking to, you see how when I go like this, so what I'm doing is that my back is actually going in and out. I'll do it from here so you can see it more easy. So I'm taking a breath in, Okay? Okay? So that's one way. The big draw, okay, so where you want to be at when you do the big draw is you're going to come all the way up. Okay? And this is called the bow. Okay? So before then, the only thing that you're looking to do is you're looking to and then when you come up for that breath, and then you're going to come and you're going to bend back like this. Okay? And you can feel it as far as how much it actually, I'm going to do it a couple times here so that you can get it down, but you're going to be able to feel it, how it's a lot more energy running through it. And I have to personally even take a moment, but let me show you again. So when you're up completely like this, you want to bend your back. And what that does is while you're holding the oxygen, it forces the oxygen into all the parts of the body. Okay, so you're coming up like this. But before you do that, you're just down here. Okay, and you're going. I'm breathing loud so you can hear the breath. In. Actually, I think this pillow's maybe hindered me a little bit here, so. Actually, you may want to use the pillow. All right? And then when you're coming up, and then bow. Okay. Okay, so remember what you're working to do here is you're working to hold the breath when you come up. This part here is the primer. And that final draw and you can feel the surges of energy there. I mean, again, I don't meditate and do shows, and it's because I have, it's easy for me to really get into the altar state, as I said. So, and that's what happens. The more and more that you breathe, the easier it becomes, because what happens is that it's like a balloon. You're filling up this balloon, and it's never really been filled up completely before. And that's what whole body breathing is doing. And it's sending air into certain channels that, believe it or not, there hasn't been much air in. And so there hasn't been life. And then when you bow back like this, it forces the air into those channels, because now you have this air inside of you, but now you're bowing. So what happens is the air gets forced into those other channels, and being back like that causes the body to go into that altered state. And just remember, like, you really want to practice these breathing techniques responsibly. You also want to work with the basics of the whole body breathing first before you jump into the bow and arrow. Remember, the key point to the bow and arrow is actually having that breath drawn when you come up, but you're gonna need to do these. And you'll notice that the more of those you do, when you come up, see what the goal is because you're going to go into the other, when you come up like this and you're holding and you bend back, you'll feel it. And then you even hear like a sound, I could say your breathing will change. How can I explain it? Like you'll hear your breathing, and sometimes you'll hear this, if you heard it with me, because when you bend back like that, it's forcing air into the thing, and then a little bit comes back on the channel, and you'll go, right? But you'll also feel the feeling of when you're in the altered state, we keep calling it. And then what you're going to do before obviously you fall over or tumble down is you come back down. And then you can actually stay in that state when you come back down, and then you're sound. And so obviously I'm going to personally do some more recordings of this from different positions and maybe get a cameraman in to show a little bit more. But there's enough with what I showed you today about this to progress very far in the breathing. And so, yeah, I had to kind of center myself back into even who am I and what dimension is this? What plane is this? And it's because the breathing is so empowering to allow you to get beyond the mind. So, because remember what you're doing is that you're getting familiar with what happens really when you're losing consciousness, but you actually haven't lost consciousness. And then this is kind of like a body hack in a sense, because once you oxygenate your body with the whole body breathing and you keep oxygenating your body, you don't need oxygen. Because your blood has enough oxygen in it, you're not going to die. Also understand, with this, you're not going to die. Your body will take away consciousness before it actually allows you to suffocate yourself from holding your breath. So it's not possible to do that. One thing that you will want to be careful of, though, is if you experience headaches or something like that, it's because you're going too aggressive with the breathing, and you need to work with things like the beginning process of the whole body breathing to begin to walk yourself up that ladder. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong camera here. And yeah, I guess that's the camera. Okay, so yeah, there's another camera right here. But that's how it works. And so obviously, we have another show coming up Sunday. It's been an amazing time just to share this, to share the energy, to share the information, to share the knowledge. Like, it's just been, one of those amazing things for me. I'm definitely looking forward to really working more, especially with the video log, and then to getting on this road and getting out here and then keep pursuing this expanse for all of us, because obviously that's what we've been doing, and we're going to continue to do that, and we're going to keep bringing it. So I wanted to say wholeness and balance vibrations to everyone. Like, it's again an amazing journey that we're all on, and I can only encourage you to really work with yourself to start to internalize these powers, and to start realizing that when they're talking about expansion and they're talking about different kinds of abilities, they're talking about getting into these exercises, especially the breathing is one of the main components, becoming attracted to yourself again. So you're taking care of yourself, you're worshiping the real deity, which is the supreme being, which is you, and then you're restoring your original state, which is what the breathing does, is it invigorates you, it kills the free radical, it dissolves the free radicals, and it does a lot for the body that actually gives you the energetic potential that's necessary. And then it also takes you beyond where the mind can go. So that's it. And actually, 1 second though, I thought there was a few final thoughts. And those final thoughts were, one of them is, I felt like personally, one thing is that we got a yoga video coming up. I did go to yoga class. I'm sure you saw that entry when I first started the show, but I did take a good video of yoga class, and I'm by no means a yoga instructor. I am actually inside a class, but not only am I showing you on the video that I do it, but also to show you how, it can get done in the day, especially if you have like a gym. If you go to the gym, they're always going to have some kind of yoga class going on, and it's good to participate in the yoga 2-3 times, especially if you're working out, especially to flex, make yourself more flexible. And just remember, when you're very flexible, it's also easy for you to bridge the gap between dualistic consciousness. And the final thing was, and I'm still a little woozy because of the breathing over here, but the final thing was, as I felt like, it's the final statement, but I felt like the word mind control was a little misplaced. And and I started examining how words could be misleading. And this is kind of more into the language and encryption show, which is coming up. But if you think about it, when someone says it's mind control, the first thing that we think of is actually something negative, because mind control is supposedly the art or the craft of how to control someone else's mind. But directly, the statement means having control over your own mind. So if I say, I have mind control, then that means that I have control over my own mind. But if I use the word mind control, it actually means that someone else is controlling the mind. So this is some of the stuff that we're going to be examining in the language and encryption program, so definitely look forward to that. Again, it was just one of those words that I felt, again, could be possibly misplaced in the tense of when we say certain words, the meaning of them is not completely encased in them. And we've learned a lot about that today, especially with examining the cities, the powers, and the different things that have been taken even externally and then have lost meaning altogether. So that's it. I want to say again, wholeness and balance vibration, and I'll see you Sunday.